Welcome to Breakaway Sales with Mike Carrison, where you will learn the secrets and strategies, actions and tactics of the best salespeople in the world to get the career you want and the life you deserve.
Hey folks, Mike Carrison, Breakaway Sales. Welcome back. Thanks for joining me this morning. I know many of you, particularly in sales, are feeling very cooped up by all of this, wondering where to go next. How do I plan my way out of this situation? What is the marketplace going to look like when I return? Are the old sales models still going to be there? Are the products going to change? What are the expectations of my customers? I can only begin to imagine what's running through your minds because those are the same things running through mine. So I'd like to share a few insights with you, particularly as it pertains to professional selling and reaching your fullest potential and keeping there for the long haul. Let's talk about the gap. Why the gap and what's happening at the top, the breakaway performer, that's not happening at the bottom. Meticulous planning is number one for each of these breakaway sales performers. Okay, now number two is prospecting. Everybody's heard of that. Make it fun, make it reasonable, and also make it a cadence, make it part of your plan. And everybody said, well, should it be 80% selling, 20% prospecting? The answer is I don't know. It depends on your industry. It also depends on how much you have in your pipeline at any point in time. Now, if you're a company that has a great marketing engine, and we'll get into that in future podcasts, then that pipeline hopefully is always being filled for you, which means you're always in sales mode as opposed to prospecting mode. But if it's not filling up the funnel, it's your responsibility to make sure that you fill it. So here's a very simple approach for that. And it works for me. I know it'll work for you. And that is, and I call it prospecting with purpose. So call on a beachhead. Make sure all your data is ready to go the night before. And I have a segment called 9x9 and 5x5. That means I want to make 9 prospect calls by 9 o'clock when no one else is doing it. And 5x5, meaning 5 more late afternoon when no one else is doing it. And frankly, it has always worked for me. I don't know why, but people are fresh in the morning. They're starting their day and they're likely to take your call. I get in quite a bit when I cold call of any kind, but I try to warm up the call. By sending an email or even a good old-fashioned snail mail a week before. I want to warm the customer up, let them know who we are, and have an expectation for my call. This is just discipline. This is just part of the pattern. It's part of programming yourself to do these things every single day. So get in front of them one way or another a week ahead of time and do 9x9 and 5x5 and try to do it a minimum of 3 times per week. It's a discipline. You put it in the calendar. It's sacred. No one gets that time, and you do it. And it doesn't matter how full that pipeline gets. Now, you've got to make sure that you move things through the sales funnel. You don't want to devote all your time to prospecting when you should be closing, particularly if something is ready to go. So you've got to pay attention to your sales pipeline. What stage are you in the sales process? Is it the opening stage, the discovery stage? Perhaps it's the presentation stage, proposal stage, and then finally the closing stage. That's usually the 4 sequential calls that I see in most industry segments. So know where you're at with that. And if you got enough to push through the funnel, spend your time there, get those deals done, pay attention, and then come back to prospecting. But don't just ignore prospecting. And it's a skill. And it's a different kind of skill than the actual sales process skills of moving it through the sales funnel. And we'll cover that too. We'll talk about some of the best practices for prospecting that have really worked for me, and I've seen it work for others. So we'll talk about those things as well. So the third thing, so that's number one is of course, meticulous planning. Number 2 is prospecting. Make it daily dose if you can. And then the third biggie is what I call the back wheel of the bicycle. You remember the metaphor I used in the past? Selling is like a bicycle. The back wheel is your power wheel. It makes that bicycle go. It's product knowledge, industry knowledge, competitive knowledge, overcoming objections and knowing how to do that. That's all power. It's the stuff that makes things work. And when you know your subject and you know it well, particularly as a sales representative, that's powerful. Now, the front wheel is the relationship wheel. It's the wheel that allows you to take all that power where you want to go. And that's the influencing skills to help you map a customer against a problem and a solution. And you're the provider of that solution. So front wheel, relationship skills, very, very important. Now, the frame holds the two wheels together. Remember that. That's your planning. That's your effective personal management. It's your time and territory management. So the frame is what kind of harnesses all that relationship power and that back wheel power, which is your product knowledge and your industry knowledge and all the rest. So there you go. Then mental toughness, the pedals. Think of the inertia, the energy that goes into pedaling, and no pun intended. But you have to have that every single day, and that's that renewed motivation and renewed energy. But let's go back to my point. And number 3 is back wheel knowledge. This is particularly true for new salespeople just getting into their careers. If you're going to be effective with a customer, then not only do you have to understand them and their industry and the problems they face, and be able to tell stories about how you can solve those problems, which is usually in the form of a testimonial or a reference that you can use. Without that knowledge, you can't be effective, and you certainly can't establish trust. People buy from people they like, for sure. That's front wheel stuff, and that's a bonus if they like you. But they've got to trust you, and they've got to respect you, and they have to know that they're in the hands of a professional that can solve their problem. That's huge. So if you don't have a real grasp of your products and services, and specifically how it fits into that industry segment or their company, and you can't articulate that value with total clarity, then you've got a problem. If you go back to the structured sales cycle, how do you open that call? How do you make an impact? See, right there is powerful. That's powerful product and solution knowledge. That's the stuff that makes up the impact statement. You got to play with that. You're not doing Hamlet, but it's got to be good. It's got to pass what I call the goosebump test. I want someone to say, wow, that's powerful. I need to listen a little bit further. And if you can do that, then you can get to the most important part of the call, which is asking world-class questions, facts-based questions, issues-based questions, needs-based questions, and then finally, what I call dreams-based questions. What's their dream for the company? Facts, issues, needs, and dreams. Find, incidentally. How do you find what's really going on there? And then ultimately, fashioning a solution to solve the problems that you just discovered through world-class questions. If you don't know your product or your service, or how it fits into their marketplace, how it translates into a return on investment for that customer, then you're not going to be able to develop any questions. So think about it. Think about anything that you really understand. Maybe you're a good golfer. I love golf. I play golf all the time. And I can have a conversation with a really good golfer. And what's interesting is that they can ask great questions about the golf swing, the mechanics of the golf swing, or planning your round, or managing the golf course, or selecting a shot, and because their knowledge is so deep, so they can take you into a depth of that discussion that's not only valuable information and helpful, but it's fun. It's an enjoyable conversation. When you know what you're doing and you know your product and your service, you're the expert. They are hanging, hopefully, on every word that you have to say. If you have superficial knowledge, then you're struggling and you don't even know where to go with the conversation. And that's a problem. So find out. Go to the powers at the company that understand the products and the services. Go to your boss. Find the technical services folks, the manufacturing folks, the the consultants within your business. Find somebody that is an expert and spend the time with them. And I mean, go into that meeting prepared and pull as much out of that brain of theirs as you possibly can, and study it and understand it. When you have back wheel knowledge, then you're powerful. You're ready to go. Then we'll combine it with the front wheel knowledge, which is influencing skills. The two of them together, formidable. In fact, I wouldn't even want to compete with you because you're a professional. You're a breakaway performer at that particular point in time. And that's where we want to get all of you. Believe me. I guess the final point, particularly during this crazy pandemic time, as you re-enter the marketplace, rather than diving in there like a bull in a china shop, I think you want to go in with empathy. And I think you want to go in as a supporter for them. How are you doing? How's your recovery? What is it that you need from me to effectively support that effort? And go there, not with your hat in your hand looking for something. Go there to solve something, to support something, and to be there as their partner. This is going to be viewed by them very, very empathetically, of course, on their part too, because they now have empathy for you. But they're really going to have compassion for your approach. And I think that's the kind of tone that we want to bring back into the marketplace. So, quick review. Number one, breakaway performers are meticulous planners. Top goal, roll it into quarters, pick your beachheads, and then bake it into the runway. Get it down to the granular duties and actions that you have to perform every day, and don't pack the calendar with too much. But make sure there's 4 to 8 specific things that you have to accomplish every day that supports the goal. Okay? That way it's highly effective management of that day. That's number one. Number two, prospecting. Do not neglect this. It's lifeblood. Without it, you will have a bad quarter and you can mess up an entire year. So simple, 9x9, 5x5. Make sure you do your email, snail mail ahead of time. Wake them up. Make sure they know you're coming, and then go do it. And make sure you have a steady diet of effective prospecting. And that's planning too. How am I going to open that call? What are the objections I'm likely to get when I'm prospecting? Am I prepared to overcome them? You got to think these things through before you pick up that phone or knock on that door, so to speak. Number three, back wheel. Know your products and services better than anyone else in the industry. Now you're not selling. You're a consultant. Okay? You're the guy who can solve the problem. You're the gal that they trust and they trust you because of the power of your questions alone. They're going to be saying, wow, finally somebody that knows what they're talking about, because they're asking great questions that, frankly, I wish I had the answer to. See, now you're creating need and you're establishing need, and that's what we want. And then finally, empathy. Go in with empathy, support. How can I help you? Ought to be your general motive and inspiration for that call. To be effective, you got to be a people person too. Put the two together and you've got a breakaway performer, I promise you. So we'll keep talking about all of these things. And I'm going to have a series for objection handling coming up in a little bit. But next time, I'm probably going to go into some sales management discussions, because the sales manager has the toughest job in the business, and we want them to flourish. Okay, so enough for today. Take that to the market, become a breakaway, and I'll see you next time. Thank you.
Thanks for watching, and a special thanks to our subscribers. Consider becoming one today and visit breakawaysalespro.com for much more on how you can get the career and life you want with breakaway sales skills.